Hey, folks. Morning, Amanda and Pilot.
Hi.
Good
Hi.
day to anyone who it's not morning there, I guess. Um,
Good
Just
day.
covering all our bases.
yeah, I want to be time inclusive, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so it's been a busy couple weeks at Reclaim. Start of the semester for a lot of schools. I think a lot of folks are busy right now. How are you all doing?
Yes.
Yes, you
Yes.
are. You are doing.
Yes.
Cool.
Pretty much.
It's
Doing
going.
actually.
Yes. No, it's going pretty well. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm running a little behind on. If anyone has who's watching has sent me emails in the past couple days, you may have received an automatic response that says, "It's the end of the month. You'll hear from me in a week." um because it's the end of the month. They'll hear from me in a week.
Very, very considerate of you to send those out because for me, it's just like, oh my God, it's been a week. I'm sorry. I meant to reply.
Well, it's actually sort of on topic because it's something that I started doing maybe not a year ago, but it's something I started doing a
Because
while
of the
ago
roundup, right?
because of the
Yeah.
roundup.
Yeah.
Because the last week of the month uh, is for me the time of let's focus on the roundup,
Mhm.
and so I started putting out that autoresponder so that I didn't have to stress. Like the idea of if you are expecting something from me, I might get back to you. I might have time, but if you don't hear back from me, here's two other places you can send this, and someone else will get back to you.
See, it's a sliding scale of considerateness.
Yeah.
You have an automation set up to make sure everyone receives that message. Amanda apologizes, and I just don't respond to email very quickly. So sometimes I apologize. But so, yeah,
All the
um,
good news.
it's like, it's not an end of the month thing. I just typically check in on email once a day, and sometimes I don't get back to things in a couple days. So,
I think for me too, and we will move on, but like I don't just check email once a day. I have my email open pretty much all day. And then I just see things come in and I'm like, oh no, I can't respond to that right now. And then I just feel that stress all day. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's open. I can see the number, like, but I don't spend time on it more than usually, unless I have a lot of it to get through, right? But
I do
yeah.
a frankly insane thing, which is that I have a recurring task every day in Asana that is just email inventory, where at the start of the day, I go through my inbox and I write down all of the people that I have to respond to. And then that's what I work off of. And if your email is not in that list, then I'll get to it tomorrow.
I could not live my life that way, Pilot. But
Frequently, I don't actually do that, but that's what that's for.
Might be showing our hand a little bit with
we we can't all be Pilot. That's the thing.
no,
So,
there can only be one.
yes.
I'm not setting up weird and redundant systems. Who am I?
um, cool. So, well, I'm glad we're all hanging in there. And today's stream, we wanted to talk about kind of look back on. Well, it's interesting. So, we're going to be looking at Ghost and newsletters and Ghost. We've had a Flex course on this before. It was almost a year and a half ago at this point,
Oh
which is,
no.
yeah, hurts my brain. Um, so we're gonna kind of revisit some of it. We're gonna kind of fully set up Ghost, and just a little demo newsletter. We're also gonna talk about this. The context for this is two things, really one thing, but kind of two things. The main context, I think, is, hey, it's been a bit, and we think it's worth revisiting because we're using this tool even more than we were a year and a half ago, for various things at Reclaim. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And so much so that we're actually going to rerun a sort of updated version of this Flex course later in the spring. We just put it on the calendar. It just was announced in the roundup. And so that we're really excited to kind of do a more in-depth revisit of Ghost. Today is going to be a little bit more, how are we using it at Reclaim, some technical refreshers, and then also talking about the second thing, which is, we're if folks who are watching this, around the time we are streaming this, Substack is having a bit of a moment, and Substack is the proprietary platform that makes it really easy to get started. The newsletter, you don't need to have hosting or anything. It's free to use. For free newsletters, and for paid stuff they take, I think, a portion of what you make, things like that. It's a platform, and Substack seems, I haven't used it personally, but it does seem to be a nice, easy to use tool. But they're having a whole breakdown with content moderation right now, which is kind of the same story we've seen, I don't know, since social media started, probably before that. That's as long as I've been paying attention, is like social media stuff. But I'm sure content moderation and topics around it have been a topic of the internet since, at least the web, I have to imagine. But
I mean, just look at the Chans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So we kind of wanted to we felt like it was a good, timely thing in that context of like, look, just as a reminder, and we're not gonna lecture anyone here too much, but I'm gonna take 30 seconds and say, like, just as a reminder, like, when you use open tools that you can self-host, and we hope you self-host them with us, but there are other choices. That's the whole point, right? You can host them other places too. They put the power back in your hands. You don't have to be at the whims of Substack and who they will allow on their platform that you don't want to be associated with. So we're going to focus on Ghost today because it's probably the most direct, I think, open source tool as an alternative to Substack. It is a blogging engine. It's a CMS, but it's very focused on the newsletter experience nowadays, and also the entire, like, people can sign up and you can have paid newsletters if you want them. All of that stuff Ghost does out of the box. So that's kind of why we're focusing on it as an alternative. And it's really interesting to see other publications leave Substack for Ghost now. And some of them are leaving for Ghost has their own hosting service it's called Ghost Pro. It's very much like WordPress.com and WordPress.org, right? Like, you can use automatic
I was going to say
service.
it's interesting to me because the idea of saying, well, we don't like Substack as a platform because they're hosting our stuff and we don't, and we're not really comfortable with their content moderation policies. You get the choice to say, okay, well, Ghost is also a hosting platform. I'll go to them and their content moderation policies. Or to say, I'm not really interested in using them as a platform, but I do like the tool.
Yeah, and you can change your mind later, which is the really cool thing. It's not, Substack. There's actually information out there about, like, what is it like leaving Substack, right? Like, and they'll give you, exports of your subscribers and things like that. But you do have to kind of set everything else up from scratch, like, because there's no open version of Substack that you can move to. If you're using Ghost Pro, their hosted service, or Ghost on Reclaim Cloud, and you decide you don't want to have a business relationship with, us at Reclaim or Ghost, the company, you can pick up your Ghost site and move it to another host that in its entirety, and point your DNS, and your readers shouldn't even notice. So that's the advantage here. This is a little bit of a,
this is also something
don't take my word for it kind of thing. Like, again, we love working with people, and we love that we have kind of a small but passionate community around some of the stuff we do at Reclaim. But, like, when it rubber comes to road, you don't have to take our word for it. You can host these tools anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's something that I talk about with clients sometimes, is then, because we also, I guess for people who are stumbling upon this, one thing that Reclaim does is we work with higher ed institutions to provide hosting platforms that they can then offer to their community. And sometimes we talk to people who are saying, well, how do I keep my, like, as compared to Squarespace or Wix, or we get people who are coming to our shared hosting saying, well, why should I use WordPress instead of Squarespace or Wix? And the answer is kind of just, well, if in 6 months or a year or 2 years you decide that you don't like Squarespace or Wix for whatever reason, you don't have a lot of options to leave. But
yeah,
if
your
in
option
6
is to
months,
start over someplace else.
yeah, and if in 6 months or a year or 2 years you decide that you don't like us, then we'll be sad and we'll miss you, but you can always walk away from us, and that's fine.
Easily.
By
And
design.
with your stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah, sure. Use Wix, use Squarespace. They're great tools. Really, really helpful for some people. But you don't own your stuff.
Yeah.
And you just don't. And that's
The
just not the
ability
case with us.
the ability to leave is core to anything.
The ability to leave being a good and relatively easy option.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You have the ability to leave Wix or Squarespace, and if you own your own domain, right? Like if you have a domain name and you've pointed it to those tools, well, that's a little bit better, right? Like that's certainly better in that you can still have the same address and space, and you're just using a different tool to, make the website. But I would say going even farther, in terms of time investment, maybe money spent on the platform, having something that you actually own and can fully, move someplace else and not change even very much of the content or
You don't have to
none of the
do
content,
the work. Yeah.
it's just better, So
That's also now got me thinking about the idea of hosting on a free subdomain of Substack, which we also offer free subdomains. You don't have to purchase a domain to host with us, and I think that's pretty normal for most hosting providers, just to say, yeah, there's a free option. You
it's
don't have
not
to.
very normal for most cPanel hosting providers, to be
Oh.
honest with you. But I'm sure there are some.
Mhm.
We can't be the only ones. But it's not that normal for open, platforms.
That's odd. Well, but I'm thinking about the idea of if you're going in and you're saying, all right, I can get a Substack domain, a Substack subdomain for free, then you do run into the issue of saying, all right, well, how do I take my stuff out and put it in Ghost? How do I make sure people can find me if I do move to Ghost? You can't set up a redirect because it's not yours.
Yeah. So that actually, one thing I wanted to mention before we kind of get into Ghost itself a little bit too is I put in the Discord, and I'll put these links in again because I have them handy. But a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, is anyone else kind of following the Substack implosion? And to be clear, like I don't think Substack's going away. I'm sure people will continue using it. Hopefully, all the people moving for them will put pressure on them to make content moderation decisions people like, but you're never going to please everybody. That's the whole point. And our argument is you don't need to if you have choices.
Yeah.
So anyway, couple
Taylor,
examples.
if you can, platformer news.
Yes.
Okay.
So a couple examples. The first one here is from Platformer, which is a big newsletter from Casey Newton, who's been a tech and platform journalist for various places for a long time. And he went, he and I think a small team went independent a while ago. They had been using Substack and now they're on Ghost. And so it's kind of, this example is interesting to me because this is a pretty high profile newsletter. A lot of people pay for this. And the content that it covers is tech platforms and content moderation and social media stuff. So it's a big and well considered and well thought piece on the space, basically. Another one I think is interesting is Molly White's does amazing work around a lot of different things, but specifically like Web3 and cryptocurrency. And Molly moved I forget what the actual, it's just called Citation Needed, from Substack to Ghost. And the cool thing about this write up is it gets into a lot of the stuff we're talking about here too, including like I like that I'm not on a VC backed platform and all this stuff, but also goes way into the tech too and like all of the specific steps um, that needed to happen to move kind of seamlessly. This is actually one thing I really like about Molly's writing is she blends that really seamlessly. Um, so that's really cool. I'll put that link in Discord too. Um, and then this is actually not about someone leaving. This is just someone saying like, I'm on Ghost and I like it. And I mostly just put this one in because I've been following Matt Birchler's blog almost as long as I've used RSS. So it's another good, I think, take on all of this stuff. So yeah. And also links out to a few other things. So hopefully that kind of gives a quick overview of our current context. I don't know if Pilot and Mandy, if you have other things to add on sort of Substack versus open alternatives before we kind of get into Ghost.
I mean, I just think, and not to beat a dead horse, but it's just kind of like, I think people, it goes back to social media platforms as well, where it's just you hold these one platforms, this one tool, this one company, this one person or institution as like, when you give them that much power and you, by putting all of your eggs in that basket, it's just kind of like, you're not going to be happy with everything that one
You never could.
does. No.
Yeah. Unless it's you.
And that's what I love about your point, Taylor, of just like, if you like, you're not going to, institutions or organizations are not going to keep everyone happy. They're just not. It's not possible. And it doesn't mean that they're always going to be like morally wrong when they do that. It's just like people should have the option to just do them, you know? And so, and I think that, yeah, we have the option. I'm not saying people don't have that option, but I think that people will be less disappointed when they come to terms with that fact of like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe I should just own my presence and my stuff online. And so that I'm not constantly searching around for who's matching my values right now. It's like, I do. So I'll do it.
Yeah, and it's going to change. And obviously you weigh that. It's a decision you have to make when adopting almost any tool or technology, right? I should say, it's a decision I hope people make every time, you know? And it's not always made, I think, but it's something that I think is really important. Sorry, Pilot.
Well, I was just thinking now, even in a very large scale thing, sometimes we talk about digital project lifecycle and archival and things like that, and what it means to have an exit strategy or to have an idea of what sunsetting your project will look like. And I'm thinking now about the idea of like, okay, you host on ghost.org and then decide that you don't like them. You move to self-hosted Ghost, where you have more control. And then 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, maybe, Ghost says, hey, we're not developing for this project anymore. It's open source, so people can fork it. And presumably you can pick up and go to the fork if you need to. Like, there are WordPress forks of, like, Classic Press, I think is one. There's different forks of people who said, I don't like what the direction that WordPress is going. I don't like that they changed the editor or something. They forked it and they kept developing it. And if you don't like Substack or Wix or Squarespace, then you, one, can't leave if you don't like their business practices, but two, if they shut down for whatever reason, maybe the venture capital money runs out, you don't have a way to go. There are no lifeboats, even.
Yeah, and it's just about opening up your options in that way, and you're gonna need to weigh these things at every tool or technology you need to adopt, right? Like, and we at Reclaim, again, our vested interest here, just to be, I don't think anyone will be that confused who's watching this, but like our vested interest here is we can host these tools, right? So we want you to use open tools because you can host them with us, and we try to make it easy to host some of these tools, especially because some of them aren't that easy to host. So Ghost here is a good example. It's not the worst thing to set up in the world, but if you want to set it up from scratch on like, say you have a box in a machine in your basement, it's there's kind of a lot to do. Not that I think a lot of people are going to do that, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point of like, you need to set up a database, and you need to set up Ghost command line tool, and you need to set up a reverse proxy for HTTPS and all this stuff. So we're going to talk about how we can make that easy. There are other places that make it easy too, just to be completely clear. I think we may have the easiest one that I've seen, but I also haven't tried every single host. But it is important to make that to evaluate that at every step, right? Like, we are talking to you right now in two places, very much on purpose, on YouTube and on a self-hosted PeerTube site that we host and maintain. And we do that. We could say, we don't need YouTube at all. But to be perfectly honest with you, that's where people are. So we participate there too, but we're hedging the bet of like, but we do really want to own and control this stuff. So we're going to use, Owncast is our live tool we use for the live stream. And PeerTube is the archive basically of that. And so we use both. And to be honest, we typically push people to our self-hosted ones because we want to kind of keep pushing that boundary, experiment, see what it's good at, what it isn't. And now it's kind of the place for us, especially live, right? Where if you're watching right now, maybe Pilot and Amanda are, but I don't monitor YouTube's chat at all. Like, we're not even over there typically. We are kind of all in on
YouTube has a
chat, but I don't really look at it.
It comes through because we use StreamYard for our streaming. It comes through our comments in here, so we can see it, but we are not on YouTube. Like, we're not looking at the YouTube chat. It's just like, if it comes through, that aggregator, we can see it. But
yeah, I am, by the way, for posterity, putting up links to our Owncast and PeerTube in the little subtitle thing. So
yeah, and if you're watching to be honest, we're gonna have a stream too on even just like how we do streams. Like, I think probably more than one, to be honest, that we can go into more detail. But my point is to say, not at every step of the way do even us always pick the open tool, because I think it's important to look at and understand what you may be giving up by not going with an open tool. For instance, while we have, Owncast is our open self-hosted thing for the live stream, we use Discord for the chat. That's not open, right? We can't host that. We are at the whim of Discord, but that is a choice we made because it's a messaging tool. It's complicated. There's a lot of like integrations and things we need. And also we made the bet that maybe people are more likely to keep Discord open. Possibly they're using it for other stuff, and we want to be part of that. So there are times, right, to make these decisions. We use StreamYard to produce this stream. We also use open tools like OBS. But for us, if StreamYard did something terrible business-wise for us tomorrow, we could drop them and you all would barely care, right? Like, because we could just use a different tool to produce the video, right? So the relationship,
our visuals might change a little, but the places
they would
us
probably look different, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't have much impact on our ability to make video, to be honest with you. Like, we can sub that tool in with something else. So these I think it's important to evaluate these things, what you can, what you might lose when you don't have ownership over a tool, or how it's, the future of it, or anything like that. And but it's not always straightforward, right? It just isn't. So, cool. So let's talk about Ghost a little bit. I have the Ghost website up. This is they
Y'all
have
have been here
very.
for 25 minutes, and we're going to talk about Ghost
We'll
now.
start talking about Ghost soon. But to be fair, like that's what this stream is about, right? This stream is about. I mean, it's literally called "Revisiting Ghost Newsletters Amid Substack's Implosion," right? So we'll
Yeah.
have a whole new Flex course in the spring. You can revisit our old one. Pretty much everything there is still completely relevant, but we are gonna update it. And today I wanted to specifically have the conversation we just had, so I'm really glad we did. So, yeah. So this is the the Ghost company as a company, their website, and talks about the open source tool and their hosting. They have pricing for it. It's not super cheap to host with them, especially when you look at some of the limitations they put on. So their cheapest one, $9, is it limits you to how many members and how many people can sign in, and even what themes you can use. It is a little bit like the cheapest WordPress.com things, where they kind of put some limits on all that stuff. And yeah, now there's nothing wrong with that, but this is sort of what their pricing looks like. I will say if you host Ghost on Reclaim Cloud, we see it typically used between 3 and 5 cloudlets. The 3 to 5 cloudlets plus a public IP means you're going to pay less than $20 a month, maybe less than $15 a month, depending on how much traffic and how big your site is. So we are between the two cheapest Ghost plans. The cool thing, though, is there's really no limitation to the features. You can have as many users as you want on Ghost if you self-host it. So we do have a, I think, pretty good support article on how to get started with it. And we are going to kind of basically go through this article really quick just to show on video what this looks like. So I did link this in Discord too. But basically, Ghost is pretty easy to get started with on Reclaim Cloud. So you can go to the marketplace if you sign in and go to the marketplace. Under content management, Ghost is an option in the marketplace as a pre-built installer. Then you give it a environment URL. So this is a nice temporary URL before you map a domain name that you can use. And then we're going to pick it up from basically here, and I'll show the rest of this live. But the article does go on and mention like how to set it up and how you can update Ghost, how to set up mail, especially handy for both password resets and things, but also newsletters, and how to set up a custom domain. So we go through all of that here, and we even go into like, hey, if you want to know a little bit about how the under the hood stuff works, you can update Ghost manually with these Docker commands if you don't want to use this button. But like, it's a button, you can just click on it. I don't know why you would, but I like kind of showing folks how things work when it's when we can make it happen. So anyway, so going over to Reclaim Cloud, I did literally before the stream, just to save us a little bit of time, I hit the button to install it. It does take about 5 minutes to install Ghost. Sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. So this is what you'll be left with. Is once it's done, it'll say, cool, here's your new Ghost site. You can visit it here. You can set it up here. I can zoom in a little bit. And you can point a domain name with this IP, and this links out to the article. The reason I can't zoom in is the way this box works. Anyway, if I zoom in, never mind. I was gonna say it's gonna go off screen, but I guess that's not true. All right. So if I click on this, I can set up Ghost, and I'm going to do that. I'll call it my neat newsletter.
This is one thing I will say about Ghost is that you do have to immediately go make your account.
Yeah, you do. Technically, most tools like this do work this way, but we can automate around a lot of that. Like WordPress actually works that way if you install it manually. But like I couldn't tell you the last time I installed WordPress manually. So the problem is the automation here is done by me, and I don't have all of the hooks into Ghost that that say Installatron does, or Reclaim Cloud and Reclaim Press do for WordPress. So anyway, I can close this. I don't need that anymore. But oh yeah, I forgot to actually hit the button over here. So I'm going to hit create account, and here we go. It kind of gives you a little overview of what we're doing here. I am going to point a domain. So before I do much more here, I'm actually going to just go check out the homepage. This is what it looks like by default. I'm going to point a domain using my cPanel account. So I should have logged into this ahead of time, but it's okay. And so I'll go to the zone editor. I'm going to do an A record as the instructions tell me I should. Wait, did I scroll past it?
Did you save your A record?
What? No, I
It told
didn't
you-
do it yet.
Oh.
So, oh yeah, map a custom domain. So it says you will likely want to map a custom domain. You
Okay.
can find, you don't need to. So that IP address is emailed to you, but also visible at any time. You don't. That's just to help people get started. So
I also
can
realized
find
that I
the
just
IP
said
here.
A record when I meant IP address because I'm a parrot.
So if I open this little thing here, that's the IP address, same one that it told me about just before, and I can copy that. I'll make a new A record, paste the IP in there, and we'll call this my neat newsletter.jaden.me. The reason I'm giving it such a long subdomain is I've probably used newsletter.jaden.me like, I don't know, 30, 40 times it's when I develop the installer. So there may already be a newsletter.jaden.me somewhere in the global DNS system. So for the sake of making this simple, I'm going with a rather weird thing. So if I go there right now, it's not going to fully work. What was it? My neat. I don't even remember what I just put in. I have to now look. This is amazing. Is it my neat something? There it is. Okay. So if I go there right now, it's going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. That doesn't work. But we know it's pointed at something because we're getting a page. So now we have to tell Ghost about the domain because it doesn't know yet. So we can go into the add-ons here and go up, domain configuration. And I can just paste in the domain name that I've set up a DNS record for. Make sure you don't have any spaces before and after, or a period or anything like that. And I'll hit apply. It'll take a few minutes, and depending on how you do things, you may have some browser caching situations. Yeah, it is now restarting and setting up the new domain name. So if I visit there, it's now it's almost ready, but it doesn't have a HTTPS cert just yet. It'll work on that. And between when I said that, it's already got one, so it does the
Works
cert
fast.
automatically. Yeah, but it does need like, I have to give it like 15 seconds, and I'm very impatient. So now we are at this new domain name, myneatnewsletter.jaden.me. So that's probably step one, is giving your Ghost newsletter a domain name. But to be perfectly honest, you could play around with it just using the Reclaim Cloud URL for a long time. You don't have to specifically map a domain to it if you don't really want to. The next thing we should do is set up mail. And there's actually two things to do here, this is actually new and is kind of a bummer. But there's now two places to set up Mailgun, unfortunately. One is used for all of Ghost's normal functions, which is like password reset emails and stuff like that. And the other is used specifically for sending email. I think they do it this way to be like more efficient and like with the Mailgun API, but it is a little bit weird. And it also technically means that you can have like, you could use two email services. You could use one email service for like password resets and one for your newsletter. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe there's a reason. So if we go back to our setup document here, we also have some instructions on how to set up Mailgun. So basically, we're just going to use this add-on and we can put in our details. So the first thing we need to do is go to Mailgun. So Mailgun accounts are free to make, and I would recommend you use the pay-as-you-go option. Mailgun, it's some really inexpensive, you know, per block of 1,000 emails that you pay per month that you use. The cool thing though is they don't bill you until you send 1,000 emails in 1 month. So I've never been billed by Mailgun because I'm not doing really high volume stuff. We use quite a bit of Mailgun stuff at Reclaim, so we do pay them. But I think given the amount of email we send out to, you know, invoices and all of that stuff, we don't really pay that much as a company for the service. It's really affordable. Unfortunately, Ghost only supports Mailgun right now for newsletters, so it is required. But it's a great service, and I would highly recommend it. And I do expect in the future they'll support other email providers too. All right, so I've already logged in over here. I just need to refresh my page. I already have my Mailgun domain set up. When you initially make a Mailgun account, it'll walk you through how to do that. I'm not quite sure why that's not working, but not that important. What I need to do is go to SMTP credentials and add a new user, and hopefully this works. I'm not really sure what's up with Mailgun right now. So I'm gonna call this Ghost Newsletter. And then it's gonna say, how do you want to create a password? Automatic is fine. Oh my gosh, I just realized I am getting weird. I'm on the wrong domain here. That's what's going on. I may need
Newsletter.jaden.me, but for Mailgun.
Okay. That's much better. I was accidentally looking at our Reclaim stuff while signed into a different account. So that's weird that Mailgun even had that bug, but whatever. Ghost Newsletter. Great. So now I'll hit create. And it said, hey, a new password has been created. Click copy. I will do that. I'm going to go back over to Reclaim Cloud and hit mail setup. And I'm going to need to paste the password in here. It's a super long password. The username is just this entire thing. It actually gives you some of the details here. So I'll paste that in. I'll use the same from address. That sounds good to me. The host is smtp.mailgun.org, so I'll paste that in. And then it says, all right, what ports? I guess I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'll do 587. And then the service and transport. This is a little bit weird, but you do have to type this in, SMTP and SMTP. So then I'm going to hit apply.
This is the part that is mail wizardry that I don't understand.
Yeah. So it's now put that information into Ghost for password resets and things like that. The next thing I need to do is I do need to also make an API key for Mailgun, and this lets the newsletter functionality actually work. So I'm going to go back to Mailgun here, and it says sending API keys, and I'm going to hit add sending key. And this is all documented, by the way, on Ghost's actual documentation, like from ghost.org, because this is just the API key part is just every Ghost setup would need something like this. So I'll make this Ghost newsletter API key. So I'm going to copy this. I am, of course, going to delete these after we do the stream because these are all things you wouldn't want to share with folks. So now I'm going to go over to my Ghost site. And whoops, I'm not at the right domain name. That's from before. What was it? Oh, I just have too many tabs open here. My neat newsletter. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, now I'm in the right tab. If I log back into my Ghost site and go into settings, and then where is it? I should remember this. Newsletter sending. So it's got a bunch of newsletter related settings here. And then under Mailgun, it says, hey, you need an API key. So I'll hit edit. I'm going to paste in that API key I got from Mailgun. I have to pick my region. There's 2 regions of Mailgun, so I'm in the US region. And then I have to give it the domain name that I'm using in Mailgun, which in my case is mg.jaden.me, but this would be whatever your domain in Mailgun is set to. And so that's it. The mail configuration is done. If you've never had to deal with mail, like important mail configuration, you're probably like, that was a couple steps. Just trust me, this is a lot better than it than it often is. Mail is kind of hard. Email is kind of hard on the internet in terms of making sure things don't go to spam and stuff like that. The cool thing about using Mailgun is that kind of becomes Mailgun's problem. They make sure that emails are going to be configured correctly so that they don't go to spam. Of course, unless you send spam email, in which case they'll still go to spam. But so our Ghost site is configured. We are now ready, and we can use it. And Ghost itself is, you make posts, and the cool thing is, I like that Ghost is kind of all in the box. I also, like there's no plugins to get or configure or anything like that. It's all just part of Ghost. That's also a downside in that Ghost doesn't have some features that WordPress does. Especially that WordPress can add with plugins. But I think especially for something that's really focused on newsletters, this is a really good balance of functionality. And I will say from our perspective at Reclaim, we're not finding ourselves missing stuff that we, at least not regularly. So it's a really nice tool.
Yeah, especially because this is basically the same thing that you've already said, but because Ghost is so focused on being a newsletter platform, it's not really a site builder. Like
no,
WordPress is a blogging platform. You can do newsletters through it, but it's also a site builder that people use just to make websites. Ghost is like, if you're not blogging or sending a newsletter, why are you here? So one of the nice things about WordPress being open source means that there are plugins to extend it in the ways that you might need to build your website in the way that you want. But that's not as much of a question with Ghost.
Yeah, and so just noting in the Discord chat, no templates for Ghost. There are templates, so there are themes that you can use for Ghost, and they're a little bit different than WordPress themes, though. So like a WordPress theme has a lot of bearing on like the functionality of the site, right? So whereas Ghost themes are simply going to change the way the page looks. They can do less, but that also means if you're learning Ghost, you're not going to get that shock to the system in WordPress where sometimes you pick a new theme and it's like, oh, this theme has like all kinds of different configuration options. And again, I like that a lot of the time on WordPress, but on Ghost, it's all the themes kind of work the same, if that makes sense. So I can go in here and go to design and branding, and then customize.
The other thing also about this is that, I haven't done it, but it's been on my list for a long time, is that Ghost themes are more accessible, I think, than WordPress themes in terms of building your own.
Yeah, technically we're running on a roundup, technically in like the strictest technical sense. We're running a theme that I made, but all it is I took a Ghost theme, I copied the folder and changed like 4 lines of HTML in it. But that's kind of the beautiful thing, is because Ghost themes are just they're technically called it's a templating language, I think, called Handlebars.
Yeah.
But it's really just HTML and CSS. Like there's no like, oh, my theme doesn't support this version of PHP, or in Ghost's case it all runs on Node. That's not really a thing with Ghost. So you can more confidently make kind of manual changes if you're comfortable with HTML in Ghost. And it's super nice. We're not going to log into, I don't want to log into our roundup site because there's people's emails in there, and I did not take the proper precautions to make sure we don't dox people, basically. But basically, you can actually, you know what, I could even demo it if we have time. But when you're changing a theme, so if I go right now, I'm just looking at the basic theme, color
Change the
picker, things
colors,
like
stuff
that.
like
But if I
that,
go
yeah.
down here to change theme, there's a bunch of themes right in here. You can also upload a theme right into this interface. So like I literally went into Ghost and zipped up the theme. You can probably also get these from like GitHub or something. These are all open themes. And I just made the changes and uploaded the zip file to Ghost. Just like actually very similar to WordPress in that way. So and in our case, we just had some very small things we wanted to change. But you can do a lot with it. My blog, I used to run my main blog on Ghost, and I did spend some time customizing my theme, and it was pretty simple. It was something interesting between WordPress and like a static site generator in terms of how easy it was to kind of hack on. As someone who like isn't afraid of changing HTML, but isn't really a developer either. So, yeah, that was really cool. And there are other themes in here. You also can, from the settings of Ghost, do tons of stuff related to like customizing your like sign up flow and what that looks like and how that works, which is I think really kind of nice. Again, they keep it relatively simple, but I even like that they have nice handy links, like direct links to sign up, and like if you have tiers, like if you have a pricing tiers for your site, you can set those up and get links to them directly. It's a really interesting balance of like focused, but also giving you some good options. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention here, I'm going to put in just a couple members. So you can export and import users from CSV. I'll say they're members, like for who would receive your newsletter. Their importer is weirdly good. Like you can kind of give it just like any CSV file, and it will say, "Cool, how do you want to map this to like the things we need?" Which is, I didn't expect that. That's really awesome.
It's nice. It's also there's two things that I've experienced with their importer, which is one, it does pull in everybody. Well, obviously pulls in everybody, pulls them all in as members. But if you if the person's already in, if the email is already in there, but you say like, oh, my email is email@newsletter.jaden.me or something, but my name has changed and the CSV has a different name associated with that, it'll just go, oh, I know that email. I'll just change the name. I'll just fix that. And the other thing is Ghost has two ways of its members can receive your emails, or its members can be members of the site who've opted out of receiving emails nonetheless. And if someone is in that CSV, if email.newsletter.jaden, if that email is already in there and that person has said, listen, I want to be a member, but I don't want to get the email updates, re-importing them is not going to change that setting.
Yes, yeah, it's going to respect their unsubscription, which is crucial. You need to do that, and it kind of, it's kind of one of those things. Ghost does this quite often, where it like you think like Taylor, I'm like, actually, even this specific thing happened when we first started using the Roundup. We would import like lists of people who we know are like administrators or of domain of zone, stuff like that. And Pilot was like, oh, I'm going to re-import that list. And I was like, Pilot, don't do that. You're going to re-sign up everyone if they signed out. And you were like, no, it just handles that. And I was like, what? No way. Like, so it has tons of little details like that really make it easy to manage, I think.
Yeah. For context, it's our admin newsletter. So what we do is once a month, we take an export of all of the people who are in our admin database. And there's some churn there. We get new people, we get people taken off. But if someone is on the list and has previously been on the list but opted out, they're going to be in the CSV, but it doesn't matter. Ghost is going to, as you said, respect that choice.
Yeah. So a couple of weird things about Ghost I will mention is, especially if you're coming from other CMS like WordPress, there's like there is like a specific about page, and you can change this, but this is like its own weird custom thing. But every other page in Ghost is just a post that you mark as a page. Basically, Ghost has a little checkbox when you're making a post where you're like, nah, this post is a page, which it's not that big of a deal, but like I just, again, coming from WordPress, it just kind of breaks my brain a little bit. So we're not going to do much in here, but let's first newsletter email. Wow, I don't know. First email. And Ghost's editor I love it, actually. It's, again, somewhat simple, but it's pretty easy to use, and it has most of the functions I like. I really specifically like that Ghost has markdown blocks built in that are really good. So, and by that I mean, if you are markdown connoisseur, as many of us are, it supports pretty much all of the markdown stuff. And it also is really hard for the reader. Yeah. Sometimes I've seen systems that let you do this kind of thing where you can have non-markdown and markdown, and the markdown stuff will look different. Like it doesn't get the same style applied to it and stuff like that. This, you can switch back and forth seamlessly, and it's really easy. So that's cool. I really like their image tool because it has a really simple way when you upload an image to do both caption and alt text.
The alt text thing is huge.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And
it's right there. Like, it's right in the editor. I really like that. That wasn't always the case, by the way. When I used to use Ghost, I had my own like HTML snippet I'd use for images because I frequently would want to caption an image with different text than my alt text, and it didn't allow that. That's something they added. So super cool. But for now, I'll just kind of put some basic whoops. Some garbage text in there for now.
It autofills.
That's a tool I use a text expansion tool on my Mac to do that. So.
Okay, that's not I was like, wow, Ghost really does have everything. No. Yeah, this is also, we recently updated the version of Ghost that we were using, so this is new-ish to me in terms of like email call to action. I don't think they had that before. They've added some new blocks.
Yeah, it looks like they have even like a specific, like, this is really cool too. They have specific mail merge type stuff built in, and then it says this is only visible when delivered via email, that's a cool feature. So I don't know
that's
that
going to be really useful for everyone who is leaving Substack, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll just post this for now. But the cool thing is when you can click the sidebar, you can change the URL, you can change like the date and things like that. You can have post access be members only, paid members only. So member is just anyone who is in your member list that we were just looking at before. And by default, you can disable this, but by default, anyone can sign up to be a free member. But if you had paid memberships, you could limit to that, or you can get granular and say there's specific tiers. We're just gonna make ours public, but that's the thing you can do.
This is also that Ghost differentiates between member and member with subscription. Going back to that thing of
especially because members in Ghost, they're more like users with the subscriber role in WordPress, in that you also like being a member doesn't get you access to the admin interface necessarily. Like Ghost has a separate thing. Those are called users in Ghost, whereas in WordPress it kind of mixes them together a little bit. So that is one difference. Ghost also, for commenting, you do need to make an account on the Ghost site. That's one thing that is both a blessing and a curse. On WordPress, you can allow comments from just anybody, and you can use like a Kismet to manage blog spam and stuff. Ghost, you have to like specifically sign in to make an account to comment on a site, which is, I have mixed feelings about. I think I can see why they do it that way, but there are also other commenting systems that sometimes people use with Ghost that are a little bit more open. Anyway, you can also go through here and like edit the metadata and how it will look on search engines and on I refuse to call it X, on Twitter and Facebook, and and then yeah, I like that that's all kind of visible right here. I love that they have like a little keyboard shortcut thing. As a keyboard shortcut fan, I love when people place this in an easy to find spot. But I think we're ready to publish this beautiful, beautiful blog post. And I'm gonna hit publish, and this is another thing I really like. So it says, cool, are you, here's what we're gonna do. You can publish and email it, you can only publish it, or you can send it as just an email and it won't show up as a blog post on your site. This is, I like how simple that is to do.
Yeah. There's also, sorry, you continue, maybe you're gonna say this already, but
you can also choose who it goes to, right? So you can have different subscriber tiers. You can also have labels in Ghost, so separate from tiers. You can like tag people. And for our Ghost setup, I have a tag that's just called test, and it's a way for me to just send a test email to like me, and actually I think I'm the only one on there right now. But you know, any number of us at Reclaim could add ourselves to that test label, and that's really handy to just get a test email basically. And then you can also schedule it to go now or do it later.
this, I will say, is becomes counterintuitive. I think we've run into this pretty recently with the new blog. We've run into people going, oh, I want this to be published at a certain time, like next week, 9 a.m. on Tuesday. I want this to come out for one reason or another. But I think it is a little bit scary to go hit that publish button without knowing that there's going to be a last checks section. So this is good to know. If you are new to Ghost, there's going to be a last check section, and that's the section where you say when you want it to come out. Because otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll hit publish and hit send, and it says, cool, you're done. It's being sent. I am going to check my email, and yep. Let me, sorry, I don't want to, you don't all get to see my email, so I'm going to pull that up really quick and bring it into the stream, but I have to do that specifically. But here we go. And this is what it looks like by default. So you can actually modify this email template too, but it is just a really nice, simple template by default. And you know, you've got your unsubscribe link in here and all that kind of stuff. So
this is another
really slick,
sorry, go
honestly. Ahead. It's just, I like how simple for a self-hosted tool, they make it really fast to go from I have nothing to I have a newsletter that works, you know?
Yeah. This is also in terms of when you're writing things up. I'm thinking about the full post or the full site editor or something, now that they've got that in WordPress. When you're writing your blog post, it looks almost exactly like it's going to when you publish it. It's got all the formatting in place. The Ghost editor doesn't do that. So there have been times when I've been writing and I've been going like, is this going to look how I want it to look? It is going to look how you want it to look on the site. And I think that the email might change some stuff, but stylistically, at least for what we use, it's going to come out looking pretty similar to the styling of your actual site.
That's a good point. It's not there has been many a Reclaim community chat talking about full site, the site editor and full site editing on WordPress, right? That Ghost doesn't do as good of a job in terms of the editor looking exactly like your page is going to look. You should preview, especially if you're doing like something kind of complicated. That being said, I think Ghost does do a really good job of your post is going to look. I have not yet seen a post that looks meaningfully different from the email content, which is honestly significant because it's email formatting and stuff is kind of weird. Like it is all technically still HTML, but the way you do that in email is so different that it's not a given that this stuff just works out of the box. But in our experience for Ghost anyway, it really does work pretty seamlessly, including like GIFs and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's it. We did it. We had a whole talk about self-hostable tools and open tools, and we published a nonsense first issue of my neat newsletter. So, yeah, I'm
Well
gonna call
done.
it a good win. Do y'all have anything before we kind of sign off? We are a couple minutes over time, but
No, I gotta head out. So this was a great stream though, and I appreciate the chat that we've all had in Discord.
Yeah.
I loved to start the day off with some open source tea. So thanks, Taylor.
For sure. See y'all.
Bye.
Same here. See ya.